Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Questions Protestants Can't Answer. Today's question is from Galatians 5, and it is, can someone who is truly a Christian be severed from Christ? Can they fall away from grace? I'm John Martinoni, president and founder of the Bible Christian Society, and as I mentioned, the question today comes from Galatians 5, verses 1 through 4. In verse 1, Paul says, "For freedom Christ has set us free." It's about freedom from sin. So if you've been freed from sin, then you're saved, right? You're a Christian. "Stand fast, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery." Oh, wait a minute. If once saved, always saved is true, then they can't submit again to a yoke of slavery, can they? So why does Paul even bother mentioning this if once saved, always saved is true? But continuing on, verse 2, "Now I, Paul, say to you that if you receive circumcision," and he's talking about this because the Galatians were being affected by the teachings of the Judaizers, who were a branch of, or a sect within Christianity, saying that you basically had to practice all the Old Testament laws in addition to what Jesus taught you. In other words, you had to be circumcised and so forth. And they were coming to this group of Gentiles, telling them these things, and it was disturbing these folks. So Paul says to them, "Now I, Paul, say to you that if you receive circumcision," in other words, if you submit to the old law that these Jewish Christians are trying to tell you you have to submit to, "Christ will be of no advantage to you. I testify again to every man who receives circumcision that he is bound to keep the whole law. You are severed from Christ, you who would be justified by the law. You have fallen away from grace." Paul says someone who submits to the old law would be severed from Christ and would be fallen away from grace. Well, how can you be severed from Christ if you are not first a part of Christ, if you're not first joined to Christ? You can't sever my finger from my hand if my finger is not first attached to my hand. So you cannot be severed from Christ unless you are first attached to Christ. Well, and you can't be attached to Christ unless you're a believer, unless you've been saved. So what's going on here in Galatians 5, verses 1 through 4? This can't be right, can it? How can someone who's been saved, who has been set free, as Paul says in verse 1 of this chapter, then be severed from Christ? That's not possible, is it? Well, yes, it is. Paul says so. So what does that say for once saved, always saved? It ain't happening here. So again, the question for today from Galatians 5, verses 1 through 4, if you are joined to Christ, can you then be severed from Christ? Think about it. Pray about it. That's it for now, but be sure to check out all of the free apologetics materials, CDs, MP3 downloads, apologetics newsletters, all free at BibleChristianSociety.com. BibleChristianSociety.com.